Maria wiped down the last table of her shift, her tired feet aching from another long day at Romano's restaurant. The small Italian eatery had been her workplace for 3 years now, ever since she moved to the city to support her younger siblings, back home. The evening rush had finally ended and she was looking forward to heading home to her tiny apartment. As she was about to flip the closed sign, she noticed a small figure huddled outside the restaurant window. A young boy no more than 10 years old, pressed his face against the glass, watching the remaining customers finish their meals. His clothes were wrinkled and dirty, his dark hair messy, and his thin frame suggested he hadn't eaten in quite some time. Maria's heart immediately went out to him. She had grown up poor herself and knew the desperate look of hunger all too well. Without hesitation, she unlocked the door and stepped outside into the cool evening air. "Hey there, sweetie," she said gently, crouching down to the boy's eye level. "Are you okay? Are you lost?" The boy looked up at her with large, sad brown eyes. He seemed frightened at first, taking a step back. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I was just looking. I won't bother anyone." "You're not bothering anyone," Maria assured him with a warm smile. "What's your name, honey?" "Tommy," the boy replied quietly, his stomach growling loudly enough for Maria to hear. "When did you last eat?" "Tommy?" she asked, though she already suspected the answer. Tommy looked down at his feet, embarrassed. "Yesterday morning, I think. Maybe the day before. I can't remember." Maria's manager, Frank, appeared in the doorway. "Maria, what's going on? We need to close up." "Frank, this little boy is hungry," Maria explained. "Can we make him something, please? I'll pay for it myself." Frank, a middle-aged man with a stern face but a kind heart, looked at Tommy and sighed. He had seen too many homeless people in the city, but children always affected him differently. "All right, but make it quick. And Maria, you don't need to pay. The kid looks like he needs help." Maria's face lit up with gratitude. She gently took Tommy's hand and led him inside the restaurant. The warm atmosphere, filled with the lingering aroma of garlic bread and pasta sauce, made Tommy's stomach growl even louder. "Sit here, sweetheart," Maria said, guiding him to a corner booth. "What would you like to eat?" Tommy stared at the menu, with wide eyes, overwhelmed by all the choices. I don't know. I've never been to a restaurant before." Maria's heart broke a little more. "How about I surprise you? I'll make you something really special, okay?" She hurried to the kitchen and prepared a generous plate of spaghetti and meatballs, Tommy's eyes following her every movement. She added extra bread rolls, a side of vegetables, and even convinced Frank to let her prepare a slice of chocolate cake from their dessert display. When she placed the food in front of Tommy, his eyes filled with tears. "Is this really all for me?" "Every bit of it," Maria said, sitting across from him. "Go ahead, eat up." Tommy ate slowly at first, savoring every bite as if it were the most delicious meal he had ever tasted. As he became more comfortable, he began to eat more eagerly, but still with remarkable politeness for such a hungry child. "This is the best food I've ever had," he said between bites, sauce adorning his chin. "I'm glad you like it," Maria replied, watching him with motherly affection. "Tommy, where are your parents? Are they looking for you?" Tommy's expression suddenly became sad again. "My mommy died last year. She was sick for a long time. And my daddy?" He paused, struggling with the words. "I don't know where my daddy is. We got separated at the train station 3 days ago. There were so many people, and I got scared and ran. When I came back, he was gone." Maria felt tears welling up in her own eyes. "What's your daddy's name, honey?" "Vincent," Tommy replied. "Vincent Romano. He told me we were coming to see his restaurant, but I got lost before we could find it." Maria's blood ran cold. Vincent Romano was the owner of Romano's restaurant. She had worked here for 3 years, but had never met him personally. Frank managed the day-to-day operations, and Vincent only came by occasionally, usually when Maria was off duty. She had heard he was a successful businessman who owned several restaurants in the city. "Tommy, she said carefully, trying to keep her voice steady. What does your daddy look like? He's tall and has dark hair like mine. He always smells like coffee and cologne. He wears nice suits and has a watch that he lets me play with sometimes. Oh, and he has a scar on his hand from when he burned it cooking when he was little. Maria's hands were shaking now. She had seen Vincent Romano's photo in the office, and Tommy's description matched perfectly. More importantly, she remembered Frank mentioning that Vincent had a scar on his hand from a childhood cooking accident. Tommy, I need to make a phone call, okay? Keep eating, and I'll be right back. She rushed to the office where Frank was counting the day's receipts. Frank, I think this boy might be Vincent Romano's son. Frank looked up confused. What are you talking about? The boy's father is named Vincent Romano, and he described him perfectly. He said they got separated at the train station 3 days ago while coming to see his restaurant. Frank's eyes widened in realization. Oh my God, Vincent called 3 days ago in a panic. He said his son had gone missing at Central Station and asked if we had seen a young boy. I didn't think to connect it because the boy he described seemed well-dressed and cared for. We need to call Vincent right now, Maria said urgently. As Frank reached for his phone, Maria returned to Tommy, who was finishing his cake. She sat down beside him, her heart racing with the possibility that she was about to reunite a father and son. Tommy, I think I might know how to find your daddy. Tommy's spoon froze halfway to his mouth, chocolate cake crumbs scattered on the table. His eyes grew wide with a mixture of hope and disbelief. You know where my daddy is? I think so, sweetheart, Maria said gently, placing her hand over his small one. Frank is making a phone call right now. We might have some very good news for you soon. In the office, Frank dialed Vincent Romano's number with trembling fingers. The phone rang twice before a desperate voice answered. Hello? This is Vincent Romano. Mr. Romano, this is Frank from your restaurant. I think we found your son. There was complete silence on the other end, followed by a sharp intake of breath. Are you certain? Where is he? Is he okay? He's here at the restaurant, sir. He's safe, fed, and unharmed. One of our waitresses, Maria, found him outside looking through the window. He's been eating dinner and told us his name is Tommy. He described you perfectly, including the scar on your hand. Vincent's voice cracked with emotion. I'll be there. In 10 minutes, please don't let him leave. I've been searching everywhere for 3 days. The police, private investigators, I've had everyone looking for him. He's not going anywhere, Mr. Romano. We'll take good care of him until you arrive. Frank hung up and rushed back to where Maria sat with Tommy. The boy was finishing the last bite of his cake, and Maria was telling him stories about her own childhood to keep him distracted. Your daddy is on his way, Tommy, Frank announced, with a smile. He'll be here very soon. Tommy's face transformed with pure joy. Really? Daddy's coming? He found me? Actually, you found him, Maria said, ruffling his hair affectionately. By coming to this restaurant, you came to exactly the right place. I don't understand, Tommy said, looking confused. Maria exchanged glances with Frank. They decided it would be better to let Vincent explain the connection himself. You'll understand soon, honey. Your daddy will explain everything. As they waited, Maria helped Tommy clean up, washing his face and hands in the restaurant's bathroom and combing his messy hair with her fingers. She wanted him to look his best. When his father arrived, Maria, Tommy said as she dried his hands with paper towels, thank you for feeding me and for helping me find my daddy. You're the nicest person I've ever met. You don't need to thank me, sweetheart. I'm just glad you're safe. My mommy always told me there were angels watching over me. Tommy continued innocently. I think you might be one of them. Maria felt tears forming in her eyes again. This precious child had been through so much loss and hardship, yet he remained sweet and grateful. She hugged him tightly, wishing she could protect him from all the world's cruelties. Meanwhile, across the city, Vincent Romano was driving through traffic like a man possessed. His hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles were white. For 3 days he had barely slept or eaten, consumed with worry and guilt over losing his son. The trip to the city was supposed to be special. Tommy had been asking to see his father's restaurants, and Vincent had finally decided to bring him for a weekend visit. They were going to stay in a nice hotel, eat at all his establishments, and spend quality time together. It was meant to be their first real adventure since Tommy's mother, Vincent's beloved wife Sarah, had passed away from cancer the previous year. But everything had gone wrong at Central Station. The crowds were overwhelming, and Tommy had become frightened by all the noise and commotion. In a moment of panic, the boy had run, and despite Vincent's frantic searching, he had disappeared into the sea of people. Vincent had blamed himself every second since. He should have held Tommy's hand more tightly. He should have been more careful. He should have never brought his traumatized son to such a chaotic place so soon after losing his mother. Now, as he pulled up to Romano's restaurant, his heart was pounding with relief, anxiety, and overwhelming gratitude. Through the window, he could see a small figure sitting in a booth, and even from outside, he recognized his son's profile. Vincent burst through the door with such force that the bell above it rang frantically. "Tommy!" The boy turned around, and his face exploded with joy. "Daddy!" He leaped from the booth and ran across the restaurant, launching himself into his father's arms. Vincent caught him and held him so tightly that Tommy squeaked in protest. Tears streamed down the man's face as he buried his nose in his son's hair, breathing in his familiar scent and confirming that this was real, that his child was truly safe. "I thought I lost you forever," Vincent whispered, his voice breaking. "I'm so sorry, Tommy. I'm so sorry I let go of your hand." "It's okay, Daddy," Tommy said, patting his father's back comfortingly. "The nice lady took care of me. She gave me the most delicious dinner ever, and she helped me find you." Vincent looked up through his tears at Maria, who was standing nearby, with Frank, both of them crying as they witnessed the reunion. He gently set Tommy down but kept one hand on his son's shoulder, as if afraid he might disappear again. "You must be Maria," Vincent said, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't know how to thank you. You saved my son's life." Maria shook her head modestly. "Anyone would have done the same thing. He was hungry, and he needed help. I couldn't just walk away." "But you didn't just feed him," Vincent continued, wiping his eyes. "You cared for him, you kept him safe, and you reunited us. You gave me back the most precious thing in my world." Tommy tugged on his father's jacket. "Daddy, did you know this is your restaurant? Maria works here, isn't that amazing?" Vincent looked down at his son in surprise. "You told him?" Frank stepped forward. "Actually, sir, we figured it out when Tommy told us his father's name was Vincent Romano and described you perfectly. The boy had no idea he'd found his way to your restaurant." Vincent stared in amazement. Of all the places in the city his son could have ended up, he had somehow found his way to his father's restaurant. It seemed impossible, like divine intervention. "It's like Mommy sent me here," Tommy said innocently, echoing his father's thoughts. "She always said she'd watch over us." Vincent knelt down to his son's level, holding both his hands. "Maybe she did, buddy. Maybe she did." The next morning, Vincent sat in his downtown office, still unable to fully process the miracle that had brought his son back to him. Tommy was sleeping peacefully in the hotel suite nearby, exhausted from their emotional reunion and the trauma of being alone for 3 days. Vincent had spent the night watching his son sleep, afraid to close his own eyes in case this was all a dream. Every few hours he would gently check that Tommy was still breathing, still there, still safe. Now, as sunlight streamed through his office windows, Vincent was trying to figure out how to properly thank Maria for what she had done. A simple thank you seemed inadequate for someone who had literally saved his child's life and restored his family. He called Frank first thing in the morning. "I need Maria's address and phone number. I want to do something special for her." "Sir, with respect, Maria isn't the type of person who expects rewards for doing the right thing," Frank replied. "She's been working here for 3 years and she's always going out of her way to help people. Last month she gave her tips to help a homeless man get a hotel room for the night. That's just who she is." This information made Vincent even more determined to find a meaningful way to express his gratitude. He spent the morning making phone calls and learning everything he could about Maria Gonzalez. What he discovered touched his heart deeply. Maria was 25 years old, and had moved to the city from a small rural town to find work. She sent most of her earnings back home to support her 3 younger siblings and their aging grandmother. Her parents had died in a car accident when she was 18, leaving her as the sole provider for her family. Despite working long hours at the restaurant and living in a cramped studio apartment, Maria was taking night classes at the community college, hoping to eventually become a nurse. She wanted to help people professionally, just as she had helped Tommy instinctively. Frank also told Vincent about Maria's work ethic and character. She never complains, never calls in sick, and treats every customer like family. The regular customers specifically ask to sit in her section because she remembers their names, their favorite orders, and asks about their lives. She makes everyone feel special. Vincent was amazed. This young woman who had so little herself had opened her heart and shared what she had with his son without a moment's hesitation. She embodied everything he tried to teach Tommy about kindness and generosity. That afternoon, Vincent brought Tommy back to the restaurant. The boy had insisted on returning to thank Maria properly and to see the place where his miracle had happened in the daylight. When they walked in, Maria was setting tables for the lunch rush. Her face lit up when she saw Tommy, and she immediately dropped what she was doing to give him a hug. "How are you feeling today, sweetie?" she asked, crouching down to his level. "Much better," Tommy replied enthusiastically. "Daddy and I had breakfast together and we talked about Mommy, and we're going to visit her grave tomorrow to tell her I'm safe." Maria's eyes filled with tears at the boy's innocent words. "I think she already knows, honey. I think she's been watching over you this whole time." Vincent watched this exchange with growing emotion. Maria's genuine care for his son was evident in every word and gesture. She wasn't acting kindly because Vincent was her boss. She truly cared about Tommy, as if he were her own child. "Maria," Vincent said, "could we speak privately for a moment?" She looked nervous, wondering if she had done something wrong. They went to a quiet corner of the restaurant while Tommy colored on napkins at a nearby table, completely content. "I've been thinking all night about how to thank you," Vincent began. "What you did goes beyond kindness. You saved my son's life and you gave me back my reason for living. I need to do something meaningful to show my gratitude." Maria shook her head quickly. "Mr. Romano, you don't need to do anything. Seeing Tommy safe with his father is thanks enough. That's all I wanted. But that's exactly why I want to help you," Vincent continued. "Frank told me about your situation, about how you're supporting your family and going to school at night. You have dreams of becoming a nurse, of helping people." Maria looked embarrassed that her personal business had been discussed. "I don't need charity, Mr. Romano. I'm managing fine on my own." "This isn't charity," Vincent said firmly. "This is gratitude. You gave my family a miracle, and I want to help make your dreams come true." He pulled out a folder he had prepared that morning. "I've looked into the nursing program at the state university. It's a better program than the community college, but I know it's expensive. I want to pay for your entire education, including all fees, books, and living expenses." Maria stared at him in shock. I can't accept that. It's too much." "Maria, my restaurant business is successful because I believe in investing in good people. You are one of the best people I've ever met. But more than that, you saved my son. There is no amount of money that could repay that debt." Tears began streaming down Maria's face. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Tommy called out from his table, having overheard the conversation. "Maria, you should help sick people like you helped me. You'd be the best nurse ever." Vincent smiled at his son's interruption. "Tommy's right. You have a gift for caring for people. The world needs more nurses like you would be." Maria was overwhelmed. The nursing program at the state university had been a distant dream, something she hoped to achieve someday in the far future. With Vincent's offer, she could start immediately and focus on her studies without worrying about working multiple jobs to survive. "There's one condition," Vincent added with a gentle smile. "When you become a nurse, I want you to promise me something, anything," Maria whispered. "Promise me you'll always remember that small acts of kindness can change the world. What you did for Tommy changed everything for our family. As a nurse, you'll have countless opportunities to show that same kindness to people who are scared, hurt, and alone. Maria nodded, still crying. I promise. I'll never forget how it felt to help Tommy, and I'll try to make every patient feel cared for. Vincent extended his hand to shake hers, sealing their agreement. Welcome to the Romano family, Maria. We're going to help each other succeed. Tommy jumped up from his table and ran over to hug both of them. This is the best day ever. Maria's going to be a nurse, and we're all going to be friends forever. As Vincent watched his son embrace the woman who had saved him, he felt his wife Sarah's presence strongly. He could almost hear her voice saying, "This is how kindness works, Vincent. It comes back to you multiplied, and it creates families where none existed before." Frank appeared from the kitchen, having heard the good news. This calls for a celebration. Maria, take the rest of the day off. You've got a new life to plan for. The restaurant filled with warmth and joy as other staff members learned what had happened. Everyone who worked with Maria knew she deserved this opportunity, and their genuine happiness for her success created an atmosphere of pure love and community. Vincent realized that Maria hadn't just saved Tommy. She had reminded him of the importance of kindness, generosity, and believing in people. She had given him back his faith in humanity and his connection to the values his wife Sarah had always embodied. 6 months later, Maria was settling into her new life as a full-time nursing student at the state university. The transition had been overwhelming at first, but with Vincent's support and her own determination, she was thriving in her studies. True to his word, Vincent had taken care of everything. He had found her a small but comfortable apartment near the campus, paid all her tuition and fees, and even provided a monthly allowance so she could focus entirely on her education without worrying about basic necessities. More importantly, Vincent and Tommy had become like family to her. Every Sunday, she joined them for dinner at Vincent's home, a tradition that had started the week after their first meeting. These dinners had become the highlight of her week, filled with laughter, stories about school, and Tommy's endless questions about what she was learning. Tommy had appointed himself as Maria's unofficial study buddy. While she reviewed her textbooks, he would sit beside her doing his own homework, occasionally asking her to explain medical terms in ways he could understand. His curiosity about her studies had actually helped Maria better grasp complex concepts by forcing her to explain them simply. "Maria," Tommy said one Sunday evening as they cleared the dinner dishes, "when you become a nurse, will you still have time to be my friend?" Maria hugged him tightly. "Tommy, I'll always have time for you. You and your daddy are my family now. Nothing will ever change that." Vincent watched this exchange from the doorway, his heart full of gratitude for the blessing Maria had brought to their lives. She hadn't just saved Tommy that night at the restaurant. She had brought joy, warmth, and a sense of completeness back to their home. The house had been too quiet since Sarah's death. Vincent had thrown himself into work, and Tommy had retreated into books and solitary activities. But Maria's presence had changed everything. She brought laughter, asked about their days, celebrated small victories, and made their house feel like a home again. At school, Maria was excelling in all her classes. Her professors were impressed by her dedication and natural compassion. During clinical rotations at the hospital, patients consistently praised her gentle bedside manner and genuine concern for their well-being. "You have something special," her clinical instructor, Mrs. Patterson, told her after observing Maria comfort a frightened elderly patient. "You don't just treat symptoms, you see the whole person. That's a rare gift in healthcare." Maria's classmates had initially been curious about her situation. It wasn't common for someone to suddenly quit their job and enter school with full financial support. When they learned the story behind Vincent's generosity, their respect for Maria grew even deeper. "You literally saved a child's life, and instead of asking for money, you just wanted to help him," her study partner Jessica said in amazement. "That says everything about who you are as a person." Back at Romano's restaurant, Frank had hired a new waitress to replace Maria, but everyone still missed her cheerful presence. Regular customers frequently asked about her, and Frank proudly updated them on her progress in nursing school. Vincent had also made changes in his business practices, inspired by Maria's example. He implemented a policy where his restaurants would provide free meals to any child who appeared to be hungry, no questions asked. He also started a scholarship fund for employees who wanted to pursue education, remembering how Maria had been taking night classes while working full-time. One evening, as Maria was studying for her midterm exams, she received an unexpected phone call. The voice on the other end was unfamiliar but warm. "Hello, is this Maria Gonzalez? This is Dr. Helen Rodriguez from St. Mary's Hospital. I'm calling because your clinical instructor, Mrs. Patterson, has told me remarkable things about your work with patients." Maria's heart began racing. St. Mary's was the most prestigious hospital in the city, known for its excellent care and innovative programs. "Mrs. Patterson says you have exceptional clinical skills and an extraordinary bedside manner," Dr. Rodriguez continued. "We have a summer internship program for promising nursing students, and we'd like to offer you a position." Maria nearly dropped the phone. "Are you serious? I'm only in my first year of the program." "That's exactly what makes this so remarkable," Dr. Rodriguez explained. "Most students don't develop your level of patient connection and clinical intuition until much later in their training. We believe early exposure to our hospital environment will benefit both you and our patients." When Maria called Vincent to share the news, his excitement rivaled her own. "This is incredible, Maria. St. Mary's only takes the top students in the region for their internship program." "I'm scared I'm not ready," Maria admitted. "What if I make mistakes? What if I'm not as good as they think I am?" "You'll be perfect," Vincent assured her. "Remember what you did for Tommy that night? You saw a child in need and you acted with compassion and wisdom. That's exactly what makes a great nurse." Tommy, who had been listening to the conversation, grabbed the phone from his father. "Maria, you're going to help so many people just like you helped me." The internship at St. Mary's proved to be transformative for Maria. Working alongside experienced nurses and doctors, she learned to handle complex cases while maintaining her signature compassion and attention to each patient's individual needs. Her supervisor, Nurse Margaret Chen, became a mentor and was amazed by Maria's natural abilities. "I've been nursing for 25 years and I've rarely seen someone with your intuitive understanding of patient care," she told Maria during her evaluation. One particular case highlighted Maria's special gift. An 8-year-old boy named David had been in the hospital for weeks with a serious illness. He had become withdrawn and refused to cooperate with medical procedures, making his treatment difficult. When Maria was assigned to his care, she immediately recognized the fear and loneliness in his eyes. It reminded her of Tommy that first night at the restaurant. Instead of focusing immediately on medical tasks, Maria sat down beside David's bed and simply talked to him. She told him about Tommy, about being scared and finding kindness in unexpected places, and about how brave he was for fighting his illness. "Sometimes when we're scared, it helps to know someone cares about us," she said gently. "I care about you, David, and I'm going to make sure you're as comfortable as possible while you get better." Within days, David's entire attitude changed. He began cooperating with treatments, eating better, and even smiling occasionally. His parents were amazed by the transformation. "What did you do?" David's mother asked Maria tearfully. "He's been so angry and frightened for weeks, but now he seems hopeful again. I just reminded him that he's not alone," Maria replied simply. "Sometimes that's the most powerful medicine we can offer." Word of Maria's success with difficult patients spread throughout the hospital. Doctors began specifically requesting her for cases involving scared children or uncooperative patients. Her reputation for combining excellent clinical skills with exceptional emotional intelligence made her invaluable to the medical team. Vincent and Tommy visited her at the hospital, one day bringing flowers and cookies from the restaurant. Seeing Maria in her scrubs confidently moving through the corridors and interacting with patients and colleagues, Vincent felt overwhelming pride. "Look at you," he said, beaming. "You're exactly where you're supposed to be." Tommy was fascinated by the hospital environment. "Maria, do you think when I grow up I could be a doctor and work with you?" "I think you'd make an excellent doctor, Tommy," Maria replied, ruffling his hair. "You already know the most important thing about medicine, how to care about people." As they walked through the hospital together, Vincent reflected on how much their lives had changed since that night 6 months ago. A simple act of kindness had created a ripple effect of positive change that continued to grow and touch more lives each day. 2 years had passed since that fateful night at Romano's restaurant, and Maria was now in her final semester of nursing school. Her transformation from a struggling waitress to a confident, skilled nursing student had been remarkable to witness. The internship at St. Mary's Hospital had turned into a part-time position during her studies, and the hospital administration had already offered her a full-time nursing position upon graduation. Maria had become something of a legend among the staff for her ability to connect with the most difficult patients and her unwavering compassion in challenging situations. Vincent's business had also flourished during this time. Inspired by Maria's selfless nature, he had expanded his charitable initiatives. The Romano Foundation now provided scholarships for students from disadvantaged backgrounds, funded free meal programs at several community centers, and supported various healthcare initiatives throughout the city. Tommy, now 12 years old, had grown into a thoughtful and caring young man who often accompanied his father on visits to the foundation's beneficiaries. The experience of being lost and then saved by Maria's kindness had shaped his understanding of the world and his place in it. "Dad," Tommy said one evening as they reviewed applications for the foundation's latest scholarship program, "I want to be like Maria when I grow up. Not necessarily a nurse, but someone who helps people the way she helped me." Vincent smiled at his son's words. "You already are like Maria, buddy. You have her heart for helping others." One spring morning, Maria received a phone call that would test everything she had learned about compassion and strength. Her grandmother in her hometown had suffered a heart attack and was in critical condition at the small rural hospital. Maria immediately called Vincent, her voice shaking with worry. "I need to go home. My grandmother raised me after my parents died, and she's all the family I have left besides my siblings." "Of course," Vincent replied without hesitation. "Take all the time you need. Tommy and I will drive you there." "You cow. Don't have to do that," Maria protested. "It's a 6-hour drive and you both have school and work." "Maria," Vincent said firmly, "you're family. When family needs help, we don't ask questions, we just show up." The drive to Maria's hometown was emotional for everyone. Maria shared stories about her grandmother, a strong woman who had worked multiple jobs to keep the family together after the tragedy that had claimed Maria's parents. Tommy listened intently, understanding the fear of potentially losing someone so important. When they arrived at the small hospital, Maria was shocked by the contrast to the modern facilities she had grown accustomed to at St. Mary's. The equipment was outdated, the staff was overworked, and resources were clearly limited. Maria's grandmother, Elena, was in the intensive care unit. Despite her weak condition, her eyes lit up when she saw Maria enter the room. "Mija," Elena whispered, using the Spanish term of endearment she had always used for Maria. "You came home." "Of course I came home, abuela," Maria replied, taking her grandmother's hand. "I'm not going anywhere." Vincent and Tommy waited respectfully outside while Maria spent time with her grandmother. When she emerged an hour later, her eyes were red from crying. "How is she?" Vincent asked gently. "She's stable, but the doctor says her heart is severely damaged. She needs surgery that this hospital isn't equipped to perform. The nearest cardiac center is 4 hours away and—" Maria's voice broke. "Our insurance won't cover the transport or the procedure. It's too expensive." Vincent didn't hesitate for even a moment. "What hospital? What procedure? I'll make the calls." "Vincent, no," Maria protested. "You've already done so much for me. I can't ask you to pay for this too." "You're not asking," Vincent replied firmly. "I'm offering. Your grandmother helped raise the woman who saved my son's life. That makes her family to us too." Within hours, Vincent had arranged for Elena to be transported by medical helicopter to the state's best cardiac center. He had also spoken directly with the head of cardiology, ensuring that Maria's grandmother would receive the finest possible care. During the helicopter transport, Maria rode alongside her grandmother, holding her hand and providing the kind of comfort and reassurance she had learned to give to frightened patients. Elena squeezed her granddaughter's hand weakly. Mija, this man who is helping us, he must be very special to you. He is, abuela. He and his son are my family now, just like you are. Elena smiled despite her pain. Good. Family is what matters, most in this world. Everything else can be replaced, but family is forever. The surgery was successful, but Elena's recovery would be long and challenging. Vincent arranged for Maria to take a leave of absence from her final semester of nursing school so she could care for her grandmother during the recovery period. But I'm so close to graduating, Maria worried. If I take time off now, I might not finish with my class. Your education will wait, Vincent assured her. Family comes first. The university will understand. And when you're ready to return, your place will be there waiting for you. During Elena's recovery, something beautiful happened. The small rural hospital where she was completing her rehabilitation became fascinated by Maria's advanced nursing skills and compassionate approach to patient care. The head nurse, Mrs. Williams, approached Maria with an unexpected proposition. We've watched you care for your grandmother and interact with our other patients, Mrs. Williams said. You have training and skills that our staff would benefit from learning. Would you consider teaching some informal workshops while you're here? Maria was surprised by the request. I'm not even a licensed nurse yet. I'm still a student. But you've been trained at one of the best programs in the state, and you have experience at St. Mary's Hospital. Our nurses here are dedicated, but they don't often get opportunities for advanced training due to budget constraints. Vincent, who had been visiting regularly to check on Maria and Elena, encouraged her to accept the opportunity. This could be perfect, Maria. You can stay close to your grandmother while sharing your knowledge with nurses who really need it. So Maria began conducting informal training sessions at the small hospital. She taught the staff about advanced patient communication techniques, new medical procedures she had learned, and most importantly, how to balance clinical excellence with emotional support for patients and their families. The impact was immediate and profound. Patient satisfaction scores at the hospital improved dramatically. Families began commenting on how much more supported and cared for they felt. The nursing staff gained confidence and new skills that helped them provide better care, despite their resource limitations. Word of Maria's work spread throughout the rural healthcare network. Soon, nurses from surrounding hospitals were requesting permission to attend her training sessions. What had started as informal workshops evolved into a structured program that was transforming healthcare delivery throughout the region. Dr. Martinez, the chief of staff at the rural hospital, was amazed by the changes he observed. Maria, in just 3 months, you've revolutionized how we approach patient care here. Have you ever considered that your calling might be bigger than working as a bedside nurse? What do you mean? Maria asked, genuinely curious. I mean teaching, training, maybe even healthcare administration. You have a gift for inspiring others to be better caregivers. That's incredibly rare and valuable. Meanwhile, Tommy had been visiting regularly with his father, and he had become a favorite among the patients at the rural hospital. His own experience of being scared and alone had given him a natural ability to comfort other children who were facing medical challenges. I want to help like Maria does, Tommy told his father after spending an afternoon reading to young patients in the pediatric ward. Maybe I could become a doctor who works with kids. Vincent watched his son interact with the children and felt overwhelming pride. Tommy's traumatic experience of being lost had not made him fearful or withdrawn. Instead, it had made him more empathetic and determined to help others who were scared or hurting. Elena's recovery progressed steadily, and she was deeply moved by watching her granddaughter's impact on the hospital community. Mija, she said one evening as they sat together in her room, your parents would be so proud of the woman you've become. You've taken your pain and turned it into purpose. I learned that from you, abuela, Maria replied. You always taught me that we help each other through the hard times. Yes, but you've made it bigger than I ever imagined. Look at all the people you're helping now. And this family that has adopted you, they are good people with good hearts. As Elena's discharge date approached, Maria faced a difficult decision. She could return to the city to complete her nursing degree, or she could stay in her hometown where she was clearly making a significant difference in the local healthcare community. The decision became even more complex when Dr. Martinez approached her with a formal proposal. "Maria, we want to create a permanent position for you here. We're calling it Director of Nursing Education and Patient Care Excellence. You would finish your degree through an accelerated program we've arranged with the state university, and you would oversee training and patient care standards for our entire rural hospital network." It was an incredible opportunity, but Maria felt torn. She had always planned to work at St. Mary's Hospital in the city, and she didn't want to leave Vincent and Tommy, who had become such an important part of her life. When she shared her dilemma with Vincent, his response surprised her. "Maria, this is exactly the kind of opportunity your grandmother's heart attack was meant to lead you to. You're not just being offered a job, you're being offered a chance to transform healthcare for an entire region." "But what about you and Tommy? What about our Sunday dinners and our family?" Vincent smiled warmly. "Family doesn't end because of distance, Maria. Besides, Tommy and I have been talking and we think it might be time for a change ourselves." Tommy bounded into the room at that moment, barely able to contain his excitement. "Maria, Dad's thinking about opening a restaurant. Here in your hometown. We could all live in the same place again." Maria stared at them in amazement. "You're serious?" Vincent nodded. "This community has shown us incredible kindness while your grandmother recovered. And honestly, Tommy and I have fallen in love with the slower pace of life here. Plus, I think a good restaurant would really serve this community well, and I could go to school here and help you at the hospital when I'm older," Tommy added enthusiastically. Maria felt tears of joy streaming down her face. Once again, an act of kindness was creating unexpected blessings and bringing people together in ways no one could have predicted. 5 years had passed since that transformative night when Maria first met Tommy outside Romano's restaurant. The small town of Millbrook had become home to an extraordinary story of how a single act of kindness could create ripples of positive change that touched countless lives. Maria was now the Director of Nursing Education and Patient Care Excellence for the regional hospital network, overseeing quality care standards for 6 rural hospitals. She had completed her nursing degree with highest honors through the accelerated program and had become a respected leader in rural healthcare. Under her guidance, the hospital network had achieved recognition as a model for patient-centered care in underserved communities. Nurses from across the country came to Millbrook to learn from Maria's innovative training programs, which emphasized both clinical excellence and compassionate care. Vincent's restaurant, Romano's Millbrook, had become the heart of the community. More than just a place to eat, it served as a gathering spot where locals celebrated milestones, held community meetings, and supported each other through difficult times. True to his promise, Vincent continued the policy of feeding any hungry child, no questions asked. The restaurant had also become a training ground for young people interested in the hospitality industry. Vincent had created apprenticeship programs that taught not just cooking and service skills, but also business management and entrepreneurship. Several of his former apprentices had gone on to open their own successful businesses. Tommy, now 17, was preparing for his final year of high school. His experience of being lost and found had shaped him into a remarkable young man with a deep commitment to helping others. He volunteered regularly at the hospital, had learned to speak fluent Spanish to better communicate with some of the community's immigrant families, and was planning to study medicine with a focus on pediatrics. "I want to help scared kids the way Maria helped me," he often told people who asked about his future plans. "She showed me that sometimes the most important medicine is just letting someone know they're not alone." Elena, Maria's grandmother, had not only recovered completely from her heart surgery but had become something of a local celebrity. At 85, she was more active than ever, volunteering at the hospital, teaching traditional cooking classes at the community center, and serving as an unofficial grandmother figure to many families in town. One sunny Saturday morning, the town was preparing for its annual Kindness Festival, an event that had started 3 years earlier to celebrate acts of compassion and community service. The festival had grown each year, and now attracted visitors from neighboring towns who came to learn about Millbrook's unique culture of caring. Maria was putting the finishing touches on her speech for the festival's opening ceremony when her phone rang. The caller ID showed a number from the state capitol. "Hello, Ms. Gonzalez. This is Governor Patricia Williams' office. The governor would like to speak with you about a matter of state importance." Maria's heart began racing. She couldn't imagine what the governor of the state would want with her. A few moments later, Governor Williams herself came on the line. "Ms. Gonzalez, I've been following the remarkable work you've been doing in rural healthcare. Your programs have not only improved patient outcomes in your region, but have also served as a model that we're implementing statewide. Thank you, Governor. That's very kind of you to say. I'm calling because I'd like to offer you a position as the state's Director of Rural Healthcare Innovation. You would oversee the expansion of your patient care models to rural communities throughout the state. It would mean a significant increase in your ability to help people, though it would require relocating to the capital." Maria was stunned. It was an incredible honor and an opportunity to impact healthcare on a much larger scale, but the thought of leaving Millbrook, Vincent, Tommy, and her grandmother felt impossible. "Governor, I'm deeply honored by this offer. Could I have some time to consider it and discuss it with my family?" "Of course. Take all the time you need, but I hope you'll seriously consider it. Your work here could transform healthcare for rural communities across the entire state." When Maria shared the news with Vincent, Tommy, and Elena that evening, their reactions were mixed but uniformly supportive. "This is incredible, Maria," Tommy exclaimed. "You could help thousands of people." Elena nodded thoughtfully. "Mija, this is a great honor. Your parents would be so proud." Vincent was quiet for a long moment before speaking. "Maria, remember what I told you years ago about investing in good people? This is the state recognizing what we've known all along. You have the ability to change the world. But I don't want to leave you all," Maria said, her voice breaking slightly. "You're my family. This town is my home, and will always be your family," Vincent assured her. "But maybe it's time for your family to grow bigger." Over the next few weeks, Maria wrestled with the decision. She visited each of the hospitals in her network, talking with the nurses and doctors who had become her colleagues and friends. Everyone encouraged her to accept the position, even though they knew how much they would miss her. Dr. Martinez, who had become a close friend and mentor, put it perfectly. "Maria, you've taught us everything we need to know to continue the work here. But there are hundreds of other rural communities that need what you have to offer. You have a responsibility to share your gifts as widely as possible." The Kindness Festival arrived, and Maria still hadn't made her decision. As she stood before the crowd of several hundred people gathered in the town square, she looked out at the faces of people whose lives had been touched by the ripple effects of kindness that had started with a hungry boy and a compassionate waitress. 5 years ago, Maria began her speech. "I was working as a waitress, struggling to make ends meet and wondering if I would ever achieve my dreams. Then one night, I met a scared little boy who was hungry and alone, and everything changed." She told a story that had become local legend, about how a simple decision to feed a hungry child had led to a chain of events that had transformed not just her own life, but the entire community. "I learned that night that kindness isn't just about the immediate moment," she continued. "Every act of compassion creates ripples that spread outward, touching lives in ways we can't even imagine. Tommy needed food and safety, but what I discovered was that I needed purpose and family. Vincent needed to find his son, but what he found was a way to honor his wife's memory by helping others achieve their dreams." As she spoke, Maria realized what her decision needed to be. "Today, I want to share some news with you. I've been offered a position with the state government that would allow me to help implement our patient care programs in rural communities throughout the state." A murmur went through the crowd. Everyone knew this was a tremendous opportunity, but they also knew it would mean losing Maria. "I've decided to accept this position," Maria announced, and there was a mixture of applause and disappointed sighs from the crowd. "But I want you to know that Millbrook will always be my home, and the lessons I learned here about the power of kindness and community will guide everything I do in this new role." Tommy stepped forward from the crowd, now taller than Maria, and looking every inch the confident young man he had become. Maria, we're so proud of you. And we know that everywhere you go, you'll remember what you taught us. That family isn't just about blood. It's about people who choose to love and support each other. Vincent joined them on the stage, putting his arms around both Maria and Tommy. Sarah used to say that love isn't something you keep, it's something you share. Maria, you've shared your love with our family and our community, and now it's time to share it with the world. Elena, despite her age, climbed the steps to the stage with determination. She took Maria's hands in her weathered ones and spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. Mija, when you were a little girl, I used to tell you that God had special plans for you. I never imagined they would be this big, but I always knew you were meant to help people. Go and make us proud. As the festival continued around them, Maria was surrounded by hundreds of people whose lives had been touched, directly or indirectly, by the chain of kindness that had begun with a simple meal shared with a hungry child. The local newspaper editor approached her later that day. Maria, I'd like to write a story about your new position and how it all started. What do you think is the most important lesson from everything that's happened? Maria thought for a moment, watching Tommy help elderly residents find seats for the evening's concert, Vincent serving free ice cream to children, and Elena teaching a group of young mothers how to make traditional remedies for sick babies. I think the most important lesson is that we never know how far our kindness will reach, she said finally. When I fed Tommy that night, I thought I was just helping one hungry child. I had no idea that I was starting something that would change hundreds of lives and transform an entire community. She paused, looking around at the festival celebrating the culture of kindness that had grown from that single moment of compassion. The beautiful thing about kindness is that it's always available to us. Every day we have opportunities to choose compassion over indifference, generosity over selfishness, love over fear. And when we make those choices, we never know what miracles might follow. As the sun set over Millbrook on that perfect day, Maria knew that while she would be moving on to new challenges and opportunities, the foundation of love and kindness she had helped build in this community would continue to grow and flourish. The simple act of feeding a hungry boy had created something beautiful and lasting, a reminder that in a world that often seems dark and divided, individual acts of kindness still have the power to change everything.